Welcome to Unraveling Midlife. I'm your host, Sarah Spence. This episode is a very special episode. It's not only Unraveling Midlife's 4th birthday, it's also the celebration of the end of my astrological midlife, which happened a few weeks ago. Of course, it's also a solar eclipse, the last of the eclipses in the Aries-Libra polarity. That last point is an astrology thing, which is what this podcast has been loosely based on. Astrological midlife is from the late 30s to the mid-40s for everyone. Often big things happen during that time. A lot of the people I've talked to over the course of the last 4 years for this show have divorced or had career change or big life changes at this time. It's the origin of the term midlife crisis. And though I have had a couple of astrologers tell me it's not huge for everyone, and I think the closest I got was buying a car that looks a little bit sporty, I won't go into astrological midlife too much, as I've covered it in a few different episodes. I invite you to check out the episodes featuring astrologers 9 and 26, also touched on in episodes 40 and 51. If you're new to the show, welcome. This episode is going to be a wrap-up as well as a focus on community. When I started this podcast in March 2021, 4 years ago, it was the same month that was my first festival as crew for Earthbeat Festival here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, just north of Auckland. Well, technically part of Auckland, at a regional park. I've been part of this festival for its entirety of 10 years, as a musician and workshop facilitator for dream interpretation or kirtan, and it felt like time to give back in 2021. And boy, there is a lot of work that goes into festivals, and if no one did it, there wouldn't be any of this type of festival, because the festival that I'm talking about isn't sponsored by alcohol or petrol or any of those kind of things like some of the really big ones. I figured that to celebrate the end of my astrological midlife, I wanted to feature Earthbeat Festival because over the last 4 years, I've done a couple of live panel discussions at other festivals, but never at Earthbeat because I've always been too busy. The 2025 festival has just wrapped up, the 5th festival at this particular regional park, north of Auckland, New Zealand, and it may be the last. We had conversations about what's the future of the festival going to be. Is there going to be a future? Time will tell as the conversation continues over the coming months. During this last festival, I asked a bunch of people their thoughts on community and recorded snippets of opening and closing ceremonies that relate to community. The vast majority of these people have been featured and interviewed on this podcast, and some of them are people that I wanted to interview and have on the podcast, but the universe was telling me that it's time to wrap up, at least for now. My astrology teacher, Harsha, from episode 9, encouraged me to continue for another year while Jupiter transits my 3rd house, but the feeling has been building for a while. And who knows, perhaps I'll just take a break from releasing 1 or more podcasts per month. Perhaps this will be the end, even though there's a part of me that wanted the nice round number of 5 years or a round episode number of 65. I've appeased myself that episode 53 contains digits that add up to 8, which relates to my numerology. And if you're waiting for the Earthbeat stuff, thanks for your patience. I needed to wrap up 4 years with self-reflection for those regular listeners. So, a little note on sound quality. Knowing I wanted this episode linked into Earthbeat, for practical reasons, I chose to use my phone to record snippets of what community means. And I wanted to celebrate some of the interviewees that have been part of this podcast journey. And if you do happen to be on social media and see videos on the same topic, it's because my friend in the media team thought that my idea was such a good idea that she also used it. So here's a hodgepodge of inspiration, in my humble opinion, with an outro of my live original music, this time kirtan, from the final day of the festival. Let's start with the festival opening ceremony with words from co-founder of the festival, Sadra Saffari.
So thanks for joining us on that journey. And yeah, I'm really excited to see this is the beginning of an exploration, the beginning of where we go next. And it's really really difficult to say goodbye to this beautiful whenua, Archie Creek, and the way that she has held us and processed us for our experiences at this festival. The biggest sponsor and partner in our own experience here. Hopefully somehow there's an avenue forward, or not, but we can continue to come back to this place as well. Thank you.
The following snippets are collated from psychotherapist, steampunker, folk dance lover Beth St Clair, member of many different communities; Issac Oron, co-founder of Earthbeat and guest on episode 19; Karen Hunter, aka Karena, astrologer and musician and guest on episode 14; Joe Swamy, Earthbeat crew stalwart and superhero, speaking with me; Karalia, inspirer of this creative project, spiritual mentor and guest on episodes 1, 16, 22 and 50, and I guess that makes a total of 5. That's got to be the record. Maya Nova, mindful leadership coach and guest on episode 36. And Christine Spicer, facilitator extraordinaire and introducer of human design to New Zealand and guest on episodes 9 and 16. Followed by a final snippet from Sina Saffari speaking at Earthbeat's closing ceremony, which has similar sentiments to what I'm feeling wrapping up this podcast.
To me, community is more of an experience than necessarily one specific thing, because I find I have a number of different communities, and that gives me a chance to connect with different parts of myself. So I have my festival community, I have my psychotherapy community, I have my spiritual community, my performance and circus community, and in each one of those, like, different parts of me is reflected, because it's so important to be with people who understand you, who get you, who value the same things as you, kind of, you're like-minded folk. And it's a real privilege and pleasure that I can shift between communities and feel those different parts of me really respected and valued and resonating. Yeah, so it's important.
Community to me is a feeling of safety, is a feeling of home, is a feeling of knowing that you can trust people around you, you can trust yourself, trusting those people. And community is to let go, is to let go your own ways, is to let go of your own perception, your own ideas, and it's to be open to receive and to give and to be part of something rather than being only you.
In astrology, the 11th house is a place of friendships, groups of people, groups of friends, networking, the hopes and future. I call it the house of festivals, large groups of people, networking, exchange of ideas, learning and teaching. Like in the natural horoscope, it would be the place of Aquarius, and so there's a technology implied there, the technology of communications, and all the ways that we can communicate, including the social media and telephones and newspapers and the printing press. So community is where there is groups outside the family, larger groups than blood groups. It takes a community to bring up a child. There's something implied in the 11th house, in the Aquarian ideal as well, of humanitarian work, of caring for those who aren't necessarily in your blood family, of taking an interest in people who may be in need or may be in a position where you can offer them something just because you can, not necessarily in a transactional fashion. idealism, aspiration, the being who we want to be, like being the change we want to be, being the change we want to see, should I say. And I think this is the essence of community. Community is work. There are phases of community. In the facilitation work I do, there are some models, like, for example, the norming, storming, forming, performing model, or the Scott Peck model of pseudo-community, followed by conflict, followed by spaciousness and emptiness, followed by authentic community, like moving through the stages of community. Because when we first come together, we tend to be quite surface, and we want to be liked, we want to be received well. And then as we get to know each other better, we often fall into, we disagree about things because we're not all the same person. And then often that's when friendships and communities dissolve and dissipate. It takes a lot of maturity to hold together, to go into emptiness, to go into stillness, and to allow something to emerge that is new and fresh from within, to get to a place of authentic community where people can disagree safely, when people can express emotion safely without being ostracized, where people can be different, where people can express their sexualities or their cultural preferences or their food preferences or the way they like to dress or their creativity preferences or their child upbringing preferences safely, where difference is accepted and appreciated. Difference is, in fact, what makes us stronger, So, somewhere amongst all of that is some of my ideas about community.
Yeah, for me, I guess where I am with community is forging a new path, and that is involving working with the current power structures, which is my experience right now, which is council, but also holding our vision and making that vision a reality while also holding the council's hand as well, or whatever power authority that I'm working with.
Yeah, it's kind of about all having to work together, because that's what community is for me. We're all in this together, whether or not we have personal likes or dislikes of people. We have, we have to kind of do things together and get on with it, and that's part of community, is like working through that stuff. Yeah.
Community for me is the interweaving web of the people that I've known over a period of time that coalesce around values and vision and a shared path in life. It's the people that have seen the challenges I've faced, seen the triumphs, seen the growth, and reflect me back to myself and have known me through different stages of my life. And ditto, it's the people that I have seen them deal with challenges, and I see their gifts and their development and their stages of life. And so we have this sense of each other through time. And community is the people that, if they were in trouble and I could support or help or do something, I'd be there for them in a heartbeat. And they're the ones who I know I could rely on if I reached out and I needed something, that they would be there to support me in whatever way, capacity that they had. As for how community works, it's being present with each other. Ultimately, it's being deeply present with each other, seeing each other for who we are and giving freely of our gifts to each other, trusting the web and the weave in the way that we will in turn be supported by life. And so it is spontaneous, and it's mysterious, and it's reciprocal. And it's that willingness to be open to each other and to trust, to be vulnerable and to trust. That ability as well to stand up and speak truth when truth needs to be spoken. And in terms for, inspiration for being in community, it's like a life or death thing. Like we don't exist outside of community. The only real question is, what is the quality of the community? How deeply intimate are we with each other? And the more intimate we become with each other, then the deeper and the stronger and the more powerful the community is. So maybe it's not about being in community or not in community, but rather it's how can we improve the quality, the integrity, the depth, the power, the support of the community that we're already part of. And ultimately, community it's where I feel safe. It's where I feel like I belong. It's where I feel like I have something of value to offer. I feel like I'm needed, where I have a role. And sometimes those things are unknown for a while. Like part of being in community is having the spaciousness to discover what those things are, because it may not be what we think they are. Those are my reflections on community coming out of Earthbeat Festival 2025 and landing for a few days at Ariki, which is a community with members of my community that I've known for more than a decade. And just feeling the vibrancy of that and how community is not of the form. The forms will come and go. Earthbeat will come and go. Ariki will come and go. These forms of community come and go. That community is the ineffable. It's the essence. It's the spirit. It's the heartbeat that connects us all. Yeah. Blessings to you all.
So good timing for this conversation, because we're here at Earthbeat and about to facilitate a community conversation. Community is the antidote to ego, isn't it? And it's an interesting challenge, therefore, because we have our personal conditioning, our personal preferences, our personal traumas. And that often gets in the way of us being able to work constructively with one another. And simultaneously, we share so many wonderful things. We share our the essence of our humanity. We fundamentally, I feel, are incredibly potent beings. And so what I'm personally passionate and curious is about various forms, including a gathering, such as Earthbeat, or having intentional conversations, or simply coming in celebration and joy, but to create and support opportunities, platforms for these meaningful connections to happen. Because what I think gets in the way is that we all get a bit caught in the grind of life, and whilst we hold some values very deeply, it's difficult for us to actually live them. And that the current paradigm doesn't necessarily value. We talk about community, but it's often at odds with how people need to make a living and run their lives and so on. So I think it's a very deep and profound conversation, but also I really am passionate about engagement, like as in how do we create space for this, and how do we come together, and how do we all each individually nurture some seed of this, because we are the community. The community is not out there separate from who we are. And so in the busyness and in the everything of our lives, to find ways to create space for that. And I think it's really bound up with our evolution, as we evolved as wholehearted, spirited humans, then I think that's our natural destination is togetherness. Yeah.
Thoughts about community. Community is a pretty big topic for human design, which is what I'm involved in. One of the important things to know is that the traditional ways that community has always operated, the energy that supports that is going. Yeah, so come 2027, we get to a time when the energy that's been supporting not only more traditional ways of communities operated based on bargains, based on agreements between people and loyalties and duty, but also the whole collective framework which has brought us the global agenda, if you like. That's all going. Everything that has supported that for hundreds of years is dropping out of what we call the program, which is the planets that are bringing us certain influences. And what's coming is a connection with our own inner sovereignty, our own individual, unique and different ways of being. And so the time that's coming is really for people to tune into their own inner navigation and no longer listen to authority or truth from outside of themselves, but really tune into their inner truth. So one of the things that is extremely important for this time that's coming is that people get to share what it is they genuinely get to share, and that people can speak, that there is free speech, if you like, because in the body graph, if you know the body graph, the human design body graph, there is the throat, which is the center of communication, and it's the center of manifestation. And above the throat is the head and ajna, which is the place that we think from and the place that we often communicate from. It's where all our, thoughts, ideas, imaginings are. And below the throat is where the energy is. Okay, so if you think about that as the throat is here for either expressing and talking or doing, the moment that we stop people speaking their minds, people move into doing something instead, action instead. And so the question we need to ask ourselves is, would we rather have community where people can discuss ideas, exchange ideas, express ideas, think differently, think originally, and have an open conversation, and that's how all of that energy gets really expressed in community? Or do we want to shut all that down and therefore have people starting to take action? And action can come in all different sorts of forms. And when action comes from frustration, anger, hatred, being unseen, feeling bitter, feeling disappointed, then that action creates a lot of damage in the world. And so, so we have these movements that are all converging, if you like, and peaking in 2027, and you can feel it all already happening. And so the challenge then for community is, how do we, as unique individuals, honour the sovereignty of each person and allow and enable ourselves to come together in groups which are no longer all about, this is the way it has to happen and everyone has to be the same, and unless you fit in with a certain way of thinking or a certain way of being, you're out. That's the old tribal model. The new model really is based on a whole different way of communicating with each other and honouring each other and allowing different forms of expression, and people really tuned in with their own inner space that can be respected by themselves and other people. So it's a huge challenge for us because we're so used to these tribal ways of doing things out of obligation, out of tradition, often out of feeling guilty or needing to belong, and then feeling afraid that if we do certain things we won't belong anymore. That's all the old tribal way. Or we are used to that collective way, which is, these are the rules, this is the way forward. We don't worry if there's sort of collateral damage because this is the system and we all fit in with the system. Well, that's going. I'm excited about this new world, but we're all going to need our own inner sovereignty to be able to navigate it.
There's so many new connections that were made here, memories, springboards, platforms to new projects, collaborations, connections. So much richness in this creative community, holding the space for a profound gathering. You feel the love, we feel the love, the earth feels the love. If we can hold that love in our hearts and cherish it, the future of Earth is unknown. We don't know what will happen, like tomorrow. But the future of this community it's strong. This tribe, this togetherness that we all felt. Together we hold that love in our hearts, and we will walk together and unfold new horizons. Thank you all. Aroha nui.
So, thank you for being part of my journey of astrological midlife. Until we meet again, don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day.
Saraswati, 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 Jai Jai Ma. Saraswati, 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 Jai Jai Ma. Saraswati, 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 Jai Ma. Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma, Jai Ma.
Unraveling Midlife is brought to you from Aotearoa, New Zealand by www.sarahmarlowespence.com. Theme music is by Sarah Marlowe Spence and Saraswati Marie Willis, and art by Samantha Hepburn.